Hi everybody, this is Michelle. I am part of the Seems Like Quilting team, and we've been getting a lot of questions in the shop recently about patterns that ask for pre-cuts, so jelly rolls, charm packs, or patterns that ask for yardage, and about translating between the pre-cut sizing and the yardage. Basically, people are wondering, if a pattern calls for a jelly roll, how many yards is that? If the pattern calls for 2 charm packs, how many yards is that? If the pattern calls for 3 yards, can I get that out of 3 charm packs? Right? So those are the kinds of questions that we're getting. And so I wanted to just kind of walk through some math, because luckily right now I am in the middle of making a sample from the new Tilda Jubilee fabric, and the pattern that we're using, which is the floating 9 patch pattern from Tipsy Needle. Isn't it gorgeous? I'm super excited about it. But that floating 9 patch pattern calls for a jelly roll. And well, we did get pre-cuts of Tilda Jubilee, and we are getting pre-cuts in the shop. Not everything that we're getting is a pre-cut, and we don't necessarily want to use those pre-cut packaging for our kits. Instead, we'd rather use the yardage off the bolt for our kits, and then save the pre-cuts for people who like to collect pre-cuts. Because a lot of people really like to, have a lot of practice with, or really like really specific pre-cuts. And we want to make sure that that we have all of those options for them when they're there. And so we are taking the, 10 or so, I think it's about 10 prints from Tilda Jubilee, and making a sample with the floating 9 patch pattern. This will be kitted up in the shop, but we wanted to take the opportunity to do some of this math with you so that you could understand kind of how we did it. I'm sure there's a gazillion ways to do this, and there's a lot of quilt calculators online that'll help you figure out how many 1.5 inch squares you can get out of a half yard, that sort of thing. What I'm really going to talk about today is just the quick and dirty math I did in my head to get to the yardage that we needed for the for this Jubilee floating 9 patch that's going to have 10 different prints from Tilda Jubilee's collection in the blue colorway. So we're using 10 different prints instead of off of bolt, instead of an entire jelly roll. So basically, if I think about a jelly roll is 42, typically 42 2.5 inch strips, and that jelly roll will have typically 2, maybe 3, but typically 2 strips per pattern, right? And so you're basically getting a 5 inches, or just a little over 1/8 of a yard, because a 1/4 yard is 9 inches by width of fabric. So you're getting over 1/8 of a yard. Technically, I think it's what? Yeah, well, anyway, it's Friday night and I can't math those fractions in my head, but I will tell you, you're getting just a little over 1/8 of a yard of each print in a jelly roll. So 42 2.5 inch strips equals somewhere roughly around 3.5 inch yard, or 3.5 yards. How do we get to that? Well, if I take a yard of fabric, which is 36 inches in a yard, and I'm going to, maybe straighten it up a little bit, and, all of the things that you're supposed to do by matching the grain, and all of the steps that I skip. And so if I do that, I get down to 35 inches, and 35 inches divided by 5, which is a duplicate of 2.5, is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. So 14 2.5 inch strips in a yard. That's kind of give or take where you're at. And so if I think about that, if I divide 42 by 14, I can get, 3 yards of fabric in that. 14 plus 14 is 28, plus another 14 is 42. Yeah? Yeah, it's definitely Friday night. It's been a very long week. So 3 yards of fabric in a jelly roll, that's kind of where we're at. And so what I am looking at now is doing that in the other direction and saying, well, I don't want to use just 3 yards of a single fabric. This fabulous pattern, this floating 9 patch, is so cool because it looks all scrappy and variable. And I think it's going to be fantastic with these 10 prints in Jubilee. So instead of doing 3 yards of one fabric or 1 yard of 3 fabrics, I'm taking that 3 yards and dividing it into 10 fabrics. So that basically means roughly 1/3 of a yard of each fabric. Now it seems like quilting we cut by 1/4 yard. So you'd have two choices. If you were going to recreate this for yourself, you would have the choice of getting a 1/2 yard of each of those 10 prints, or reducing the number of prints to be divisible into the 36, so going down to 9 prints, or going up to 12. And then you can be at the 1/4 yard or the 1/2 yard mark. So if you go up to 12, you just need 7.5 inches of each fabric, which is just under the 9 inches that is in a 1/4 yard. My glasses are distracting me by having my face in them, which is really odd. I think I need to, okay, whatever. Anyway, I don't want my sewing room is a complete mess. I don't want to show you too much of it. But that's basically how we're hitting that. And that's how we did the math. So as you are looking at your patterns and you're looking at the yardage requirements on the back of the pattern, if it has pre-cuts on it, knowing basically what's in a pre-cut is really the first step to being able to calculate yardage. So most pre-cuts are built on whole collections. Now, whole collections are typically they vary quite a bit in terms of how many SKUs or how many different prints are in a collection. But typically you're going to see from the larger manufacturers, you're going to see like 18 to 22 different prints in a collection. Usually they're broken into 2 or 3 colorways. So you'll have the same print, but in a different color or a different combination of colors. So when I said there are 10 SKUs or 10 prints from Tilda Jubilee's blue colorway, there were 2 colorways of Tilda Jubilee, and we got 1 in the shop, which is the blue one. And so there's 10 different prints in that. So we did not get all of the prints, but the pre-cut packs will still have all of the prints in them. So if you want the blue and the red colorway from us, you can get it in the pre-cut packs. And if you want yardage, we have the blue colorway on the sales floor and online. And pretty soon we are going to have a kit with the floating 9 patch and a sample of that, but I am going to start that tonight, and hopefully we'll get that done here in the next couple of weeks and onto the floor. So that's how you would divide out those pre-cuts into yardage. And what we want to do when we're making these kits for you is we really want to make sure that you have what you need to make the kit, but you're also not overbuying. So one of the things that happens in a pattern, a lot of times with pre-cuts, you know, because you're getting the whole collection and you usually don't buy any extra yardage, a lot of patterns that require pre-cuts actually have a little bit left over. This one in particular will have, I think, 4, 5, 6 strips left over. So basically for the purposes of our kit, we're just not going to cut those. And so as the nice thing about being able to translate between pre-cuts and yardage is that you can make sure you're not overbuying or underbuying in any scenario or situation. So when your pattern calls for either a pre-cut of a specific size and you want to make it less scrappy, or it calls for yardage and you want to make it more scrappy with actual scraps from your collection, or with by buying pre-cuts, you can absolutely do that by translating that yardage. So thank you so much. I hope this helped, and enjoy the rest of your quilty weekend.